All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. How are you all? Welcome to yet another Average Podcast. LSAPC presents yet another Average Podcast. Coming at you tonight with another exciting live stream. We're going to talk about something that I guess I could turn my phone down, but there you go. Oh, Mitchy too. All right. Well, as you guys know, I will be joined by the co-hostess with the mostest, Mitchy, and so show her off here real quick. Hello, Mitchy.
Hi.
And we're going to have a good time tonight talking about a subject matter that I know that Mitchy picked as something that she wanted to discuss. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to go over the disclaimer and take care of my dog barking, and I will be right back. Crazy. Hi, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any organization or entity. Listeners are encouraged to critically evaluate the information presented and form their own opinions. What is up, Johnny Knight? What is up? Oh, hang on. What am I doing here? All right, what is up, Johnny Knight? Christina Payne, what's going on? Mark Schaefer, welcome in, guys. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to bring in Mitchy here. I didn't hit the wrong button there, but Mitchy, what are we talking about tonight?
We're going to talk about the death of Hannah.
Can you guys hear Mitchy okay? Let me know if you can hear Mitchy. She's a little quiet, and I think I moved the mic's good. Okay.
It's okay. They really don't.
No, you're going to be critical to the whole operation of this program tonight.
So you think?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the tragic death of Princess Diana and whether or not it was orchestrated. All right, we got the thumbs up on audio. That's good. Thank you. Whether or not we believe that was orchestrated, whether that was a hit job essentially, or whether it was truly what it was. So just a horrible, terrible, tragic accident. So where do you want to start, Mitchy?
Oh, you got to start from the beginning.
Okay, go for it.
Oh, I'm supposed to go.
Well, I mean, I can talk about like the details of when the accident happened, what all the details of that. But ultimately, if you want to go back to the beginning of her divorce with Prince Charles and that kind of thing,
so I can give you a little bit of rundown, but it's not going to be that good. So just to let you know, I'm going to try to do it in my terms of how I'd say it, is originally Princess Diana. She didn't even want to marry him. And he was actually, yes, Prince Charles. And he was dating her sister too at the time. And then come to find out they ended up getting married. And then they ended up having kids, and I mean they were good together but not really good together, and there was an extra part in play, which was Ella.
Yes. I do think let's take a second here and go over the details of this is going to be a problem. Give me 1 second here.
And I can also say that sorry. I can also say, oh my God. I can also say that okay, I don't know where I was at.
Okay, so let's talk about some details. I'm just going to hold her on.
I'm sorry.
Bailey's got neighbor kids in the backyard, and so my dog's going to go crazy. All right, so Princess Diana, also known as the Princess of Wales, died on August 31st, 1997. In a tragic car crash in Paris, France. So her and Dodi Fayed were together in France, and they had dinner and had been there for a while. They had went shopping, so on and so forth. They ultimately ended up at his father's hotel, and they stayed there, but they were trying to escape the paparazzi because there were so many paparazzi there that were following them around while they were in Paris. So ultimately what happens is They send a decoy car out the front. All the paparazzi chase after it. They turn around and sneak out the back door, get in the Mercedes, I think it was, and take off the Mercedes-Benz S-Class and they take off down the road. Well, it wasn't long before paparazzi figured it out and started following them. It led to a high-speed chase. It lost control of the car in the tunnel. I'm not going to try the Ponta Alma tunnel, I believe it's called.
Yeah, I wasn't even going. I was just going to say that everybody knows the tunnel, the famous tunnel.
And ultimately, the car crashed and killed 3 of the 4 people inside the car. And that happened again August 31st, 1997. And so I've got information on all the rest of that stuff. But the question becomes, all the conspiracies came out as far as whether this was an orchestrated hit by the SIS or MI6, which is the Secret Service essentially of the British royalty. Yeah, the British royal family. There's a lot of thought to that. There's a lot of thought that
that Princess Diana predicted her death.
That princess
from the letter.
That's correct. So there's all kinds of things, and that's kind of what we're going to dig into. We both want to make sure that ultimately at the end of the day, we honor and recognize Princess Diana for the person that she was, the amazing things that she did for the human race, and just the person that she became and all the
I watched something when I was watching stuff earlier on it. There was a little girl, and I think like her little video was pretty famous for it because how she described it was Princess Diana was like a light that got burnt out, and overall just made everybody unhappy because it's not lighting up everywhere anymore because she was just a flame.
What's up, NC Collectibles? And popping in the Show Me State, popping in. Appreciate you. Yeah, so I mean, you do have to go back to the beginning. She was married to Prince Charles. She had gotten separated from Prince Charles, and
it took 1 year
in like 1992,
and they got
1993.
permission from the Queen,
right?
And it was, and overall, and they got the settlement figured out, the kids figured out, and wait till I tell you, before this even happened, this last guy was even played though.
Who, Dodi?
Yeah, wait,
no,
there was another guy before him.
Okay.
Because he was gonna. The whole thing was they say he had a ring that he was going to give her that night.
Well, there's a lot of the story that he was. So the primary story that I think from what I've research I've done is that if you believe in the conspiracy, it had to happen when it happened because they were going to come back to England to announce their engagement. And so because they went to Paris, the idea was Dodi was there to get a ring and they were going to announce their engagement. And so it had to happen because if they would have waited till they announced it, then it would have been too late. There would have been even more media attention. It would have been impossible to pull
What if I
off.
told you the guy she was engaged to before, Barry, he died in a car crash?
And that's, she was very adamant that something was going to happen to her in a car.
She sent a letter to her butler and what did it say? Said, my husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury in order to make the path clear for Charles to marry.
Right.
And there was, I mean, it like covered up whoever's name was originally on it. But
no, it originally said Tiggy.
Well, here's the thing, that letter.
And it said that Camilla was just another piece of the puzzle that was another decoy, is what they said. Is what the letter said.
Yeah. But the thing is, that letter that was sent to the butler was never brought up as evidence to just there might be foul play.
No, it actually, well, from what I read, all of that material, because she became very paranoid. She was having her security team and her butler and everybody, like they would search her car. She would want to know, is there a tracking device in the car? They would have to pull up floorboards and things, check under the car all the time to see if there was any kind of tracking device, anything else. So she became very paranoid, and so that's kind of what led to some of that letter and some other things and whatever else. But my point was, they took all this information that she had and whatever and presented it to what we would call the chief of police. Mm-hmm. Who held on to it and didn't turn it over to the investigative team who actually looked into the crime.
Well, I have like a full list of some accident. So there's a full list of some crazy stuff that that kind of like intertwines with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things being that they said something about how when after they arrested the paparazzi people, they went back to go get the evidence from the victims in the car and it was missing. But what if I told you that 2 people in that car, especially the driver, got a huge deposit into his account right before that day, like during that day, I think at that time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot to the paparazzi part of it because I have not heard that, so that's interesting. The idea was, well, the paparazzi, the 5 of them, I think, were taken into custody. I don't know if they were arrested, but they were taken into custody. They were interviewed and
Several hours later,
ultimately dismissed and let go with no charges.
And
a number of paparazzi, when the accident happened, a number of them went to the vehicle to try to help, but many of them stayed behind and just took pictures. It created kind of a nightmare situation for medical response, emergency response teams, and so on and so forth. But
and then there was also 2 witnesses, especially the wife out of this husband and wife. Their names were that way you don't believe. They were Robin and Jack Firestone. They were quickly dismissed by the police because of what they saw in that tunnel. They saw 2 cars.
Oh, they saw the white
Nope.
car and the motorcycle.
Nope.
No? Well, what did they see?
They saw 2 black vehicles that had to have been parked in front of the tunnel, basically in front of Diana's car. And she didn't see any people in it, but they were all blacked out vehicles. And this was before
that contradicts everything everybody else has said. Everybody else has said there was a white car with 2 motorcycles.
And so the white car was actually a journalist.
But some people say that there wasn't even a white car. I mean, it's all over the board.
They figured that one out because of the journalist part. It was an actual journalist car.
Not what I just read up on. Oh. There's still this whole big secret conspiracy about this white car and these motorcycles.
Well,
as being part of the MI6 team.
Yes.
So
and 2 of them, the driver and key witness, had Secret Service connections. That one I did know.
Okay.
But
can we take it? No. We're great. But let's take a minute and just talk about who was in the car, what was going on at the time, that kind of thing. Because we're talking about the conspiracy side of it, but I also want to say why we're talking about the conspiracy. So inside the car was obviously Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed, who was at the time her boyfriend, thought to be possibly quickly going to become her fiance.
She looks so happy though in those photos.
Yeah. Henri Paul was the driver. I'm sorry. He was the driver and acting head of security. And then Trevor Reese Jones, who was the bodyguard of Dodi Fayed. So those were the 4 in the car. Trevor Reese Jones did live, survived the accident. And again, we're going to go back here for just a second because I want to explain the details that led up to this that create why there would be a conspiracy in the first place. We can talk about what the conspiracy is, but we haven't even identified why there would ever be one. When her and Charles separated, they came to an agreement and so on and so forth, but they separated and then she went on about her life. She declined to have the MI6 security that she was entitled to, was available to her, but she didn't want to use it because they were reporting every single action that she took back to Prince Charles. And she didn't want any part of that. She was trying to get away from that. That was the whole idea.
She was trying to get healthy again also.
Correct.
Because she had some health issues. And of course, you don't tell anybody you got any problems mentally or physically because that would mean something's wrong with the royal family.
But the MI6 security was going back and reporting everything. Who did she have coffee with today? Who did she see? Where did she go? What did she do? Who was with her? All of those things. And she didn't want any part of that. So she said, no, I don't want any of that. But then she, was looking for companionship. She ultimately found, there was a lot that went on in between, but she ultimately found Dodi Fayed and started dating him, and then they got very serious pretty quickly. He was the son of a billionaire entrepreneur, I believe, from that his name was Mohammed Al Fayed, and the problem became that he was Muslim and came from a Muslim family. So, the British royal family, or the SIS, the MI6, it would have been adamantly against there being any Muslim lineage back to the British royal family, and he would essentially be that in being partnered with Princess Diana through the kids back to Prince Charles and so on and so forth. So there was a lot about that and possibly protecting the royal family against her marrying a Muslim, and that comes back to what their activities were in Paris. And there's also, so they go to Paris, they wine and dine, have all this good times. He'd bought her all kinds of jewelry, showered her with gifts. It was just a matter of time that a ring was coming. And there was also some reports, and I don't know if this is true or not. I hesitate to even say it, but there was at least one medical doctor that said they examined her and saw a fetus in her stomach, that she could have been possibly pregnant.
I'll tell you about that part in a second.
Okay.
They couldn't, I'll tell you.
And so one of the theories is that had she been pregnant or not, but had she come back and announced their engagement, the idea of this, the attention that they had gotten and the announcement of an engagement or something like that, the press would have been all over, and it would have almost been like having a competing royal family. Like, people were so much in love with Princess Diana that the newspaper publications treated them like royalty, and therefore it was going to be, there was going to be a choice of which royal family did you want to follow. But there was a lot of talk about that and them possibly, and then another thing I'll address real quick, and I'm just going to turn it over to you, is when Dodi and Princess Diana first started dating, like their first, I don't know if it was their first hug, but the first person that captured them hugging on camera sold that picture to a news publication for £250,000 of British money. So £250,000 is in excess of $250,000 in US money. And that indicated to the paparazzi that these photos were worth more than their weight in gold. And so therefore, that drove the attention, that drove the drive for the paparazzi to get hot after their tail to try to capture any and every picture of them together.
Everybody loved her, so they're gonna.
They were going to follow them anyway, but now that it's financially lucrative, it brought all of them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of is why would the British royal family want to kill Princess Diana? Well, theoretically, it's because she was going to remarry, possibly have her own family. She may or may not have been pregnant, but she was going to probably get remarried and start her own family. And then it was competition to the British royal family, as well as people just loved them more than they loved.
There's a lot to it, but you were talking about the pregnancy thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them said that the coroner report was flawed. Like, they all said like drunk driving and the antidepressants was to blame from the driver. But the whole thing is that
I say,
what?
Mother Earth Mafia said bollocks, I say.
Oh, but the whole thing is that when they went to do the autopsy for the body,
mm-hmm.
there wasn't a clear detail of any of that. And I think that most likely I could understand why they would want to have that covered up. Like the royal family saying if she was pregnant, just out of probably, I wouldn't want everybody knowing that. But the whole thing is too, the royal family actually didn't get to, from what I read, view the body. Like, usually
the royal family washed their hands over.
Yeah, I know, but they went there. They just,
but they didn't have any right to her anything.
They didn't, but they were there, but nobody saw the body. Nobody besides.
Well, it was also immediately embalmed.
It was, and which is a little odd
So they couldn't test for anything. They couldn't do
they
anything.
Could have.
But once it's full of
or they did and they
you
got rid of it. And I could understand, out of like respect, I would probably want that piece of paper to be gone too. I wouldn't want anybody. I mean, who needs to know your business? Everybody knew her business.
Well, the family. I mean, the family and the family needed, or the police, either one. You have an autopsy to determine cause of death, and then follow the leads from there. If it's natural, you just say it's natural. If it's an accident, you say it's an accident. If it's a homicide, you say it's a homicide. But ultimately, in this case, they just quickly embalmed her and didn't do any major, massive tests, and didn't disclose it to anybody.
They didn't at all. And I mean, the other thing was that they called that I can't say his name. So
Doty?
Yeah, Doty. I'm Doty. Doty was his father actually like said it publicly in front of everybody. Like, I believe that the whole family, including Diana's sister and Camilla and all them, orchestrated this and killed them.
Yes, Mohammed Al-Fayed is an absolute believer that this was a acted out by the MI6 to eliminate them.
But I could see why she'd be scared, like, and paranoid that somebody's always following her, because she was probably told that you could never do anything without me knowing.
And as long as she was in the royal family, she couldn't.
Even out of that, though, just to make her even more paranoid, because to play with the kids too. I mean, like, because the kids are supposed to be going. The kids are supposed to have the crown,
and that's why she was under the watch and under the protection of the royal family. She always would have. She never would have had privacy. She would have to them. You might have had privacy to the common person, but she would have had privacy to them because they would know her every single move.
Right.
Every single.
And I'm going to come back to also to the two witnesses, because it's going to correlate with something else that I have on. Let you know.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to do it yet.
I know,
because because that's like a little later, so I don't want to. I'm trying to stay on track for your sake.
Go right ahead.
So I'm going to give you one more crazy theory, and then I'm going to go into about the camera situation. Another theory that I found, which was a little odd, was the one with her charity work with landmines. Mm-hmm. She did some type of work where she was trying to get it.
Yeah, she's famously known for her work about clearing.
And there was a lot of people that didn't like that. So that was like one of the kind of like out there theories that I think I found.
That's a bit out there because
that's
a foreign government.
Yeah, that one's a little more far-fetched, so I thought that was kind of like, well, interesting. Out of all the ones that you could figure out all that, but
he didn't want the kids to hear nose candy was in her system. I don't know. I don't know about all that. I mean, I don't know that she was partying like a rock star.
She was a little bit. I mean,
well, maybe she was.
Her best friend was like Elton John. So
yeah,
and he liked to party back then. But I still find it weird that I want to know why there was money deposited into that driver's account.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. That I feel
there's record of it. There is record of it.
Well, he might be the one that took the picture that made the $250,000.
The driver?
Oh, the driver? I don't know about the driver. Yeah.
The driver worked for this. Had close ties to Secret Service, along with the
Okay, so you're saying that
this is what I've read.
No, I know, but you're saying that Henri Paul, who was the head of security for the Fayeds, was connected to the MI6, Royal Secret Service.
But I also want to know why he got all that money that day.
Well,
it wasn't his paycheck.
I know, but he is also head of security for a multi-billion-dollar. It was a billionaire family. Like, he could have gotten money, what we would consider large quantities of money, for any reason.
I get it. I get that. All right.
I'm not saying he wasn't, because that's part of the conspiracy theory. Although that's not anything that I cross paths with. Is that he was part of it? So.
Yep. It said the driver and a key witness had Secret Service connections.
Well, Secret Service is a U.S. term. They have SIS, which is I can't remember what
whatever.
it's called. Something intelligence, something for the royal
Okay.
family.
So anyway, now let's talk about the one day underneath this busy tunnel, they turned the cameras off. It wasn't that they weren't working, they turned them off. I don't know why. I can't figure that one out. It probably says somewhere that they were probably working on it, but
So they only were off for that day?
yep.
Hmm.
They were off for that day, and out of all the paparazzi there that were continuously taking photos through the tunnel, not one showed the actual, like, when it happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're photographers. They're not videographers. So I get that, but that leads to the conspiracy side of what I think you and I talked about, was that if there was this mission to kill them, then the paparazzi had the angle in which they would have wanted. They would not have wanted to show what happened inside the tunnel. So they would have to deactivate the cameras and then cause the accident in the tunnel. And then the only images would come from the paparazzi who were behind them following. So, I mean, I think that is very odd that those cameras were not working.
Yeah, and I don't know what other.
That goes back to was there another car? Was there another, I'm going to let her down. She's going to go crazy. But was there another car? Were there these motorcycles? Whatever. But they did say that as he at a high speed, changed lanes to avoid a car, he clipped it, spun the car, and that's what caused the accident. But again, that's what whoever they are saying.
I just find it very odd that there's all these little things that, I mean, technically are right about typically the 14 cameras, or like her ex-boy. I know it's a coincidence, and I get that, and I understand that happens. About her last guy that she was supposed to marry was Barry.
So they did show the car being chased on CCTV, but not from inside the tunnel. Do
people normally get engaged that quick over?
Okay, so she was looking for somebody who, one, could protect her, two, financially provide to the level that she had become accustomed to, and I think she genuinely loved the guy. Like, I mean, I think it was just kind of a perfect storm. No matter what, she was
really all for kids too, because I think that might have.
She didn't have the lifestyle luxury to be able to go out and just date and have friends, but I mean, she was constantly swarmed at all angles at all times.
Yeah, she had no privacy at all, and I would think that would make any person probably paranoid on a level, even with paparazzi, because you don't know if they're going and giving that to him, or, I mean, you never know. They could. I don't know. It would make you paranoid.
Mother Earth Mafia, I'm making a claim that it wasn't from inside the tunnel based on what Mitchie's saying. I don't know. I don't believe the cameras worked from what I read and what I understood, but I could be wrong about that.
I looked at that was part of the
it is
Operation
Oh yeah.
Pageant? Is it Pageant?
Pageant? Yeah. It was weird to me because, like, if you're doing CCTV work, which I've done, that was a profession of mine at one time. If you're doing CCTV work, you might cut.
In 1997 too, so.
And that's about when I was doing it. So, you didn't typically have to shut a whole system down, you would shut one camera down at a time to work on it. If there was something, maintenance or some service you needed to perform. I mean, I did it for retail outlets, and we would have 30 to 70 cameras in a retail store, and we'd go in and do maintenance on them and shut one camera down at a time, do the maintenance and turn it back on. But everything operates back into a mainframe. And so if you wouldn't normally take that main system offline unless you were doing a complete overhaul, which would seem weird to me on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was so many conspiracy theories, though, after this happened, that they had to open that Operation Pageant investigation. There was, I mean, I looked at the list and it was insane. And there really is. It shows you a list of, like, 30 different ones. And I mean, they picked ones that were probably, I mean, something they could understand. But back to the two witnesses at the beginning.
Just to be clear, Operation Pageant was essentially something that investigators did after the original investigation. It was a secondary investigation. I believe it was brought on through the persistence of
the royal family.
No, Muhammad Al Fayed.
Oh, I thought it was because of. Oh no!
And then they redetermined that the cause of the accident was alcohol and prescription drug medication and high rates of speed. Now, by the way, my whole life, I mean, I was an adult when this happened, and since it happened, my whole life, all I've ever heard was high speed, high rate of speed or high speed chase. After doing the research, we're talking about, and it does sound fast, 100 kilometers per hour, but that in miles per hour is 62.5 miles per hour. They were going 65 on a busy road, and I mean that's a high rate of speed. Don't get me wrong.
And the fact that she wasn't wearing her seatbelt, and she was always wearing her seatbelt, and the one person that wore a seatbelt put it on or something. I can't remember, something about he put it on in the middle.
Yeah, some people think.
Do we even know what happened to him?
With. Who?
The guy that actually survived.
Yeah, he went on to live he went on to live his life.
He's never done an interview.
No, he doesn't do.
Never done in which I'm a little shocked.
Would you?
I mean, sorry, but but I wouldn't want to. But I guarantee somebody's probably offered $1 billion.
I wouldn't care. I wouldn't do it.
No, because but you'd also have to change your name.
Well, you wouldn't have to if you followed the line and said, hey, he was drunk and whatever, and he crashed the car, and that's what happened. If you told the line, then nobody had a problem with you. But if he had information or believed that this was a hit, then he would have to keep his mouth shut or he'd be the next on the list.
Well, and so I just want to tell you a little backstory about the two people that saw the two cars in the tunnel that were a witness, and they went up to the police and tried to offer their little whatever they were wanting to tell them, and the police were like, no, we already got enough witnesses. And she's like, no, but I really think you need to look into this. And he wrote down a piece of paper in French, and she couldn't read it, try to show it to her and have her say, you need to sign this. I don't know what it said. We still don't know what it said, but she's like, we're not going to sign that. And so what they saw was never even put into the report, but it was, their names were in the report because they were called back when they did the whole all the testifying stuff and the jury stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I found out these people are legit because I found the docket. I found it showed you
there were. I mean, you're talking about two people. There were tons of people.
I know that
with evidence that the investigators just flat out.
No, I know, but I wanted to see if it was if it was two legit people that came and spoke out about it, if they were legit. So I found it and I looked it up, and it did show the questions, because the husband said you need to speak to her because she's the one that saw the cars, because I was driving and it was dark out, and she saw it, and I saw two cars, but I didn't pay attention very much, and he said you need to talk to her about it when he was up there and ask her this question.
I mean,
they avoided the question when she was up there, and she tried to get them to say, I do have more to say, but you're not asking me the same question you asked my husband.
But I have a hard time caring about what cars were in the tunnel, because it was a busy tunnel at a busy time of night. There were tons of cars in that tunnel. Parked. I mean, there were cars parked after the accident too. I mean,
this wasn't
I don't understand. But
I'm just telling you.
No, I know. I hear what you're saying.
So, but the thing is, they also said there was also cars that were shining their lights.
I mean, it was a busy tunnel. Have you seen pictures of the tunnel? You couldn't have had parked cars in that tunnel.
I know. I'm telling you, that is what it said.
It would have been a full-on traffic jam trying to get through that tunnel.
I don't know.
Parked cars. That's why.
I mean, how busy was it going through there at night?
I don't know.
I've seen
videos of the tunnel, and it's pretty busy.
No, I know it's pretty busy, but was it busy during the time they were heading home?
I don't know. I don't know. That's why I think it's kind of weird about all when witnesses say there were other cars in the tunnel. I'm like, well, no shit.
Yeah.
It's a tunnel and there's cars on the road and there's lots of them. But there's, the seatbelt thing is weird because she was known to always wear her seatbelt and she didn't. So was there some sort of mechanical issue that prevented it? Was that tampered with in some way that she couldn't wear a seatbelt? Some other things I do want to cover.
So let me ask you this, Jeremy, do I always wear my seatbelt?
I mean, I would say no.
I do.
I know, but I've seen you not.
Well, I don't.
So I would not.
If I'm in the passenger seat and I get in the car, I need a minute to actually get my stuff in the seat.
But if somebody asked me, does Mitchie always wear her seatbelt? I would say, well, she almost always does. I've seen her not, but generally speaking, yes. The first thing she does when she gets in the car is put her seatbelt on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen it happen. So I don't think I would be so definitive to say, absolutely, she's never not worn a seatbelt.
I mean, and
that doesn't mean I think that's true in this case, because in this case, they were able to go out of the back of the hotel undetected, get in a car undetected, and then leave the scene of the hotel, which I could see if they went out to the car, they were ambushed by paparazzi, they were trying to get in and get the heck out of there, get out of there fast and avoid them all, that they'd all be rushing and maybe a seatbelt doesn't get put on. But in this case, they just literally stepped out the back, walked to the car, got in the car.
What's weird though? The one thing that I always forget about was that fourth person in that car. Like, I forget about that person. I don't even know.
Reese?
I don't know anything about that person.
The bodyguard? Trevor Reese?
Yeah, the one that survived.
Trevor Reese Jones?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was the bodyguard of Dodi Fayed.
Well, I'm just going to say that sounds like a...
he sustained serious life-threatening injuries and was in the hospital for a long time.
That sounds like a fake name if I've ever heard one.
Oh, forget about it. Listen, this is $1 billion family with their own hired security team, and he was one of the main guys. He was his personal bodyguard. I'm not for 1 second going to question anybody within the Fayed family.
No, I wouldn't.
Or Princess Diana. To me, that's not doing her any justice.
No,
or any...
it's the thing that, like, I don't know. Could they track pagers back then, or cell phones? I meant cell phones, whatever they had back then, car phones.
I mean, they've always been able to. But my point is that
I just wondered if they
didn't have. There was so they were paid and employed by one of the wealthiest people in Britain. So why would they need to go to the royal family to become part of some conspiracy theory to risk their own life for a little bit of money?
I don't know.
To them, it would have been a very minuscule amount of money.
I just don't understand how quickly the paparazzi could, without getting like the blood test after the crash. I don't know how they took the paparazzi and held them for questioning and then released them a few hours later to say that it was the driver's fault that he was drunk. And how did they know that so quickly?
Because it
took him forever to get out of the tunnel because it was like blocked off.
They got him straight. They got him fairly quickly to the hospital. They did their analysis. Well, first of all, it was, when I say they got him fairly quickly to the hospital, I don't know. Maybe it took an hour to get him.
I thought it took 4 hours.
No.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure.
Because I feel like I keep finding conflicting evidence on that.
I'll break that down here in just a second. But my point is, they took those 5 into custody and took them to a station and questioned them hours later. So by the time they would have had some preliminary test results back long before they even questioned the paparazzi. And the moment that they declared, whether it was true or not, that he had alcohol in his system or high level of alcohol and prescription medication, that was the end all be all. That's it. That's the reason it happened. And closed case, done, over with, shut it all down, cover everything else up. But now we're talking about, okay, so the main, what I've heard 2 and 1 hours, but the deal is that they got her extracted from the car.
Yep.
There were reports of people seeing her walk to the ambulance. There were reports to people seeing her with minor injuries. There were all kinds of reports. That's why it's hard to believe some of this stuff, right? But they got her extracted from the vehicle, and they got her on a stretcher. They got her in an ambulance. The hospital was less than 5 miles. I think it was 4 miles away. And not only did it take them an hour to get from that point when the ambulance took off, took an hour to get to the hospital, but they passed 2 other hospitals that could have treated. Now, we know in the U.S. what we do is we run a gun. The ambulance shows up, snatches everybody up, heads to the hospital as fast as they can. I don't know what they do over there that would be different. Treat on site, whatever. But even when they got to the gates of the hospital or the outside, whatever part of security part of the hospital, they stayed there for 4 or 5 minutes before they entered into and brought her into the hospital.
Well, they wouldn't even. The other thing is unless she requested to be at a different hospital, which she never did.
But the Royals, yes, Milky says the Royals have a special hospital. I get that, but why is she going there?
Because she's still considered a royal.
She's separated ties with the royal family. They offer her their services. She said no. The ambulance should have taken her to the nearest hospital to get her treatment and not been under some guise that, oh, we have to take her to some special hospital because she's royal family. Well, she wasn't royal family anymore.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, unless they considered her to be royal still, because she was a great person, though. So, I mean, they might still have a lot of respect for her, but everybody still called her Princess Diana. Everybody did. Princess of Wales.
She would have forever been the Princess of Wales and Princess Diana. She would have forever been that. That's why there was the idea that having a conflicting royal family, the Princess of Wales marrying Dodi Fayed, who was a Muslim, who would have been more popular in the newspapers in the area than the actual royal family, and it would have given citizens the option of which royal family do I want to follow, you know? And so there's all that. And then the idea that they had to do it before they announced any engagement or any pregnancy or anything like that. Kind of led down that path. But that did want to talk about that emergency response, because that is very odd to me that it took that long. And so a lot of people say, number one, what happened in that ambulance? Why did it take so long? What was going on in that ambulance?
Everybody
because the
knew
idea was that the reason it took that long was because they were making sure that she passed away, that it was all part of the whole thing.
As far as, I mean, some of them have said that she woke up and said.
Well, so what I saw on that was one of the paparazzi ran up to the window, checked her pulse, found out she had a pulse, and then spoke to her and said, "Don't worry, help is on the way. Help's going to be here." And the idea that the people that were close to Princess Diana that did this documentary or did this video, they said, why would anybody say that if she wasn't awake and alert or something? Well, I said it to my dad when he was not awake and alert. You know, I mean, I spoke to him when he was out. I don't know that would, because he said help is on, you know, hold on, help is on the way, does not indicate to me that she was conscious. But, you know, a lot of people think that she was because he was speaking to her.
Every time you said that, I just thought of Mrs. Doubtfire. Because don't worry, honey, help is on the way. And
yeah,
remember that?
Yep.
Sorry,
yep.
Just made me think about it. Okay, so let's just see something real quick. All right.
Yep.
So, Jeremy, before we started looking into this, because, I mean, you didn't even understand how I even knew anything about this.
Well, you were a kid. You were 9? 8, 9? 9? Yeah. You were 9. So, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, I did say, like, how do you know so much about this? You were 9 when it happened. But it was that's what this event was. That's what she was to massive. The world.
Yeah.
And
I probably saw it on the news thing, but I think probably when I probably heard my parents talk about it.
Sure.
Because it was on the news, and
Oh,
as kids, that's what we watched, that and watched Jeopardy and Full House or wherever it was on TV.
It was
And
horrifyingly tragic news.
it was, and it was all over the news and because they have to do they'll show like the funeral, and they're going to talk about it for a while. Well, then you got to remember they also started that little thing, the operation thing, and
The Operation Pageant came years and years after the death.
It did. Okay. So I probably got a little more.
Oh, I see.
A little more information.
Yeah.
When it started hitting the media more during that time, because that's when I was in high school. So what do you think I had? A cell phone.
There are things that happen in our lives that we remember that impacted us in some way that we will remember forever. I remember when the Challenger shuttle exploded. I was watching it on TV. I have a very vivid memory of everything that was happening. I remember everything about what was happening on 9/11. I mean, when these things happen, it gets imprinted onto our brain and our memories, and those are ones that we don't often forget. And so you hearing that as a child, I totally get that and understand that. I just thought it was odd because I was kind of like, I don't know that I knew much about Princess Diana until she passed. Because
she was just a really good person and left a really good legacy.
I was young in my 20s, partying, having fun or whatever. I might have been married. I don't know, 97. I guess I was married, was 2 years away from having my first kid, and living probably in Idaho or somewhere. I just don't think, maybe Indiana, I just don't think I followed British royalty on any level. So I really didn't know who she was until that happened. And then the news stories come out and they talk about it and the good work that she did and the person that she was and all those things. And then I go, okay, I get it.
Well, there's just so many. And then, of course, you got to remember, I'm in high school and she had 2 boys, and one was always getting in trouble and would always be on like MTV or the TMZ news, or you know what I mean? Like, so I knew who she was also, and I followed the family, but I always I wonder if they got a secret all the way through.
I think that the royal family became a sensation in the U.S. as a result of her passing, because I don't remember them.
I don't
remember the U.S. news and whatever following the lives of. I don't. Maybe they did. Maybe I was just too young to know. Maybe I was a young adult not paying attention.
Here's the 2 main probably events, because I don't watch the news, so I don't really pay attention to anything. But probably the 2 main events that I remember when I was like under, or we'll say 9 years old, was Bill Clinton. I remember that.
I did not have relations with that woman.
No, I'm talking about when he got elected for president.
I thought you meant the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Well, that I remember too, and I remember I wasn't allowed to probably listen to it because it was probably inappropriate.
I would hope not. At that
but
age.
I probably did, because knowing my parents, they probably both had the news on. But I just remember probably those are the main. I don't even know. I just remember that my parents were. I can't remember if they were happy. I don't remember. I just remember it was a really big event that was happening when I was a kid. I had no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just like little things like that, though, I remember. And I mean, I don't know. Just the stuff that you got to watch, and then they always had a bunch of shows on TV about her, stuff like that, and they would talk about the work that she did.
Sure.
And of course, I mean, that's a huge inspiration for kids.
Absolutely.
And they even made a movie to kind of based on it a little bit.
Well,
it was a kids movie.
Let's dial back real quick because we're away from the conspiracy side. So
let me ask you my question. I was going to ask, because that's where I originally started that whole thing. Was at the beginning of this study and all this and trying to figure this out. Before we did that, did you think that it was an accident, or did you think that it was there was probably some more stuff behind it that we just will never know?
I have always thought that it was. I've never thought that it was just simply an accident.
Okay.
Never.
Well, you didn't know a whole lot about it until you started.
I didn't. It didn't interest me enough to do the research, because I wasn't going to change anybody's mind. But as the conspiracy theories came out over time, it kind of makes you go like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm not crazy. This was, you know, a hit job by MI6 or something, um, or some sort of conspiracy. I'd never thought for a second. I mean, that that they just randomly had an accident and that all happened. Everything just pointed to they needed a controlled environment to make the accident happen. It couldn't have just been anywhere because it had to ensure maximum, damage, that kind of thing. They needed a controlled environment. They were able to control the CCTV cameras within the tunnel. The crash happens in the tunnel. The emergency response time takes so long. The lack of the seatbelt, her always constantly concerned that somebody would have tampered with the car. She had indicated in her letters that she thought somebody, or in her words, that somebody was going to tamper with her brake line. She mentioned it in letters that somebody was trying to.
Yeah, and the whole those when Barry died in that car crash, she didn't feel where she had that. It.
Yeah, I mean,
that was like the first guy I think after her, like separation divorce thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of those things she had predicted it herself. The delay in the emergency response doesn't make sense to me. The again, the CCTV cameras. There are claims that MI6 and other intelligence agencies were involved in orchestrating the accident due to potential threat Diana posed to the monarchy or national interests. She was getting all the attention, um, you know, and even though I believe that they were mobbed by paparazzi, I don't think that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what his actual Henri Paul. I don't know what his actual like blood alcohol level was or any of that stuff.
I don't know any of it. I couldn't. I looked it up. I tried finding it, but I didn't find like something that was. I could find multiple things of the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, but it didn't. I mean, there's video of them coming in and going out of the hotel. He's not like fall down drunk or stumbling over himself or anything. It just seems odd to me that this whole thing comes down to he was drunk with two incredibly important people, incredibly wealthy people. He was the head of the security team for that guy.
That's what I thought was
Dodi
weird.
Fayed,
is that the head
and
of
he just recklessly gets in a car drunk and drives at high rates of speed and
the bodyguard allowed this to happen too. I mean, the bodyguard was allowing.
Yeah, the bodyguard in passenger seats just allowing it all to happen.
I find all of it very odd.
That's why I don't think it was. That's why I think it was orchestrated. That's why I don't believe that it was just an accident. I think the British royal family had too much to protect of their own image and their own power, that they needed to control this situation, and she was stealing the attention from them, and she was potentially putting the royal family at risk by marrying a Muslim, which I mean would be ridiculous, because the British royal family, I just the whole thing is just ugly, and there's no way in my mind that it's just a drunk guy gets behind the wheel with two incredibly important people and are you leaving? And crash in the car and being done with it. Well, you can let me know when you're going to get up and walk away. I can change it over to the solo camera, but feel free to keep talking. I don't know if they can hear you as long as you stand close to the microphone. What you got?
My whole thing.
Can you guys hear her okay?
My whole thing with the pregnancy thing was that if she was actually like, I don't know if she would have gotten pregnant again. And I say that because, so she was very open and honest about like things that she struggled with. And two of the things being, one was had bulimia when she was growing up, and then she was struggling with it again while she was married. and tried to get help, and they were just like, "You'll be fine." They just basically
Well,
didn't think of what was,
yeah.
and then she had postpartum depression after the second, and so she had a lot of issues with that, and struggled for a while, and she could never get the help that she needed. So she didn't even realize that she could probably have gotten help for that. But I just feel like I don't think she would have had another.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
I
It's
don't know
possible.
whether she was or not.
I
That's
don't.
just one
I know,
theory.
but I do think that I do think that is a very strong possibility that she might have been.
Yeah, I don't
Because
know how far I want to even go down there. I will because
I
there's
feel like this
one
would have been really
person
sloppy.
there's one person who suggested that they saw a fetus, and no other doctor, no other medical technician, no other anybody has ever said anything like that. So look, I'm just going to say whatever. I don't think she was personally, but I do think that they were getting engaged and that they were going to get, and that they were going to make an announcement that they were engaged. And I think that was going to cause some controversy for the royal family. Milky says, Ryan says, I've never believed the driver was drunk. I always assumed it was an accident caused mainly by the paparazzi and her not having a seatbelt on. But I think it's odd that she didn't have a seatbelt on as somebody who typically wears a seatbelt. And I think it's odd that they would even speed away from. It's one thing to try to get away. They went out the back door to avoid the paparazzi. It's one thing to try to avoid them that way. But once they're there, I don't know how this guy would have thought he could have outran them to ditch them in some capacity. It seems odd
I
to
feel
me.
like they needed a scapegoat, and I feel like they got one. I just feel bad for the guy's family
Well, the other thing,
if they had to have any repercussions from
but
that.
but the other thing is, they were able to get out the back of the hotel to
Yeah,
get into a car undetected by the paparazzi because they followed the decoy car out the front.
that's what I'm saying. Somebody had. I wonder if there
So
was
how did the
trackers.
paparazzi figure out where they were to start this chase if they weren't notified? If they
Unless
weren't, somebody
somebody from the
didn't say.
hotel.
No, because the hotel was owned and operated by the father of Dodi Fayed.
And I understand that. I do. I really do.
I
But
mean,
there's
yes, is it weird to me that a cop, or I mean, a paparazzi might have slipped a bellboy $100 and said, "Where did they go?"
yeah,
And he said they're in a
that's what I'm saying.
Mercedes, this car, and then they tracked them down. I get that, but that's possible. But like,
There
they
was
had to have figured out where they were because they didn't have paparazzi on them when they left.
I
Yeah,
just find
biggest
it
question.
crazy that there was no other like vehicles involved in this accident. You know, like there was none of the paparazzi got hurt,
No,
and two of them were on motorcycles or like little moped things or
yeah,
whatever.
no other. I mean,
Which
if they were right on their ass like that, then it would have been a multi-car collision and all kinds of things. Yeah. Um, Mark said the biggest question I ever had was why she ever married Charles. I agree. I
well,
totally agree.
so
Why
I
would she
mean,
have done that in the first
it was
place?
an arranged marriage,
I understand, but
but
get
eh, and there was a lot. There was issues with her sister and her too, all because of him.
it
And
doesn't. It's not
he
really a question that needs to be answered. It's just a weird. They were a weird couple. She was a beautiful um, woman with poise and elegance, and he was Prince Charles. He looked like a goofball and probably wasn't a decent human being. Obviously he wasn't. He went and had
he's
affairs and
in
everything
some of
else.
the interviews I watched, he was kind of a.
Yeah, but he was having affairs and he was whatever. I mean, whatever. I mean,
I
he's the king
I
now, for
just feel like at the end of
Christ's
the
sake.
day, even a likely scenario, let's say all of it was a coincidence with the cameras being out
He's
and
still a goofball.
the
Fact.
what?
Milky said he's still a goofball. I said fact.
Well, let's just say it was all a coincidence, just how all of that ended up happening. Like tension was high because they were always like everything. And the um let's say let's say a likely scenario would have been somebody at the end of the tunnel was jacking around in turned their lights on a couple times and messed with the driver when he was going too fast around a corner. And
except that there were all the pillars in the middle. You wouldn't have clear line of sight. There wouldn't have been. I mean, I don't think that some just random act.
I think it's kind of crappy that whoever took all of their belongings to the car because they wanted.
I mean, you know, there was one publication that. So somebody put out a thing that said like, whoever has the best photo will pay, and it was millions of dollars, and they did. And there was another news publication. There was another news publication that just said we're not publishing any pictures. Period. This is disgusting. That anybody would do that. $6 million. Yeah, that's so good for that publication that said we're not touching this.
I can't remember what paper it was that said
I can't. Well, I can't remember which one said they would and which one.
I can't remember which one they said. I thought it Daily.
Mark says I never knew it was an arranged marriage.
That's what I
said yes to Mitchie because I assumed she knew. I don't have any idea. I mean, I assume you're right. I assume you know what you're talking about on that.
I even wrote down stuff so I didn't get all jammed.
Huh?
I even wrote down everything so I didn't get all jammed.
No, about the arranged marriage. I didn't. How do you know it was an arranged marriage?
Oh, when they were talking about her life or whatever through the article.
Yeah.
Like how it was arranged. I mean,
it was. Mark just said I never knew it was an arranged marriage, and I said I didn't either. I just was taking your word for it.
That's what I read. It wasn't. I mean, he was dating the sister and then literally started dating her.
Ryan, do you know anything about that?
Huh? Oh,
I'm asking Ryan if he knows anything about that.
I'm just telling. I mean, I can show you. I can find the news article again if you want.
No, I believe you wholeheartedly. I don't have any reason to doubt that. I wouldn't have any idea.
I literally think it was part of that 60-minute interview that I watched.
I watched a great video today on it.
I watched the old one and the new
thing,
one,
and it had her butler, it had Dodi Fayed's father, it had everybody connected with it, all talking about how this wasn't an accident, and again the butler saying that she was always super paranoid and made him look under the car for either tracking devices or any kind of leakage of any kind of fluids, because she was worried about brake lines and she was worried about tracking devices, that kind of stuff. She was constantly making them rip up floorboards, and she always thought her phone was tapped, and she had a reason to believe that because not only one time was it tapped, but it was publicly broadcasted, their conversation. So she had reasons to believe all these things. It was on the internet. It had to be real.
He was very he was very controlling with certain things.
Charles?
Yes. Charles was very controlling with how everything was supposed to go.
They have a public image to uphold.
And it's funny because it's like they had to get permission from the Queen to be able to separate, for her to have a divorce.
Right.
And instead of her trying to like I said, whatever mental problems you got or any health problems you got to sweep that underneath the rug until it's and you don't need to get anything help for that. But you don't think that you would want anybody to get a divorce, because then that is major news that somebody in the.
But not uncommon, not unheard of.
It's not, but that's not are you telling me there's no counseling for that or whatever?
And I'll further compound that in just a second, but let me read this from Ryan. The royal family wanted Charles to get married because he was 30. They wanted a particular kind of girl. She needed to be young. She needed to be aristocratic. She needed to be without a past. It was a very pragmatic decision. She was practically the only person who was left that fit that profile.
That must be why it said Camilla wasn't So,
but let's go back for 1 second. It's not like the royal family doesn't have a history of doesn't have a history of things like this happening. I mean, if you go back in time.
No, I get
they
that.
murdered people to protect the royal family, to protect their wealth and their power and their everything else. It's on record that it's happened before. So what's to think that it wouldn't happen in 1997? What would stop that from happening in this day and age? And at the end of the day, like we say in America, no one's above the law. Well, they kind of are. I mean, the royal family is above the law in England.
Well, not
so,
really, not anymore. I mean, not with Harry, but
I know. I mean, if you choose to leave the royal family, you choose to leave the securities that you get with being in the royal family. So if he wanted to leave the royal family, then he's on his own. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
he doesn't.
He was actually so he was closer to his mom more than William was, and he was closer to
Harry?
his dad. Yeah, Harry.
Well, he was the youngest. He was a child.
He was. Yeah, he was the. But in an interview she had done, she had spoken about how, I think this was like after their divorce or like during the separation, how like, because she was talking about the postpartum stuff and saying that he had already formed an attachment with him and he wasn't like a mommy's boy type deal, whereas Harry was.
Well, Harry was the baby.
He was.
He was a baby. There were years. There was some. I don't know what the difference in their ages are, but it was enough. I mean, he was the baby. He probably did, but
they made it even. There's just like so many factors to this whole conspiracy that makes my head. That.
Well, yeah.
No matter what, the whole thing is, even with opening up the investigation again and finding out it had to do with driver and the paparazzi this time, and that there was never going to be any closure, but she left a huge legacy for her.
That goes on to this day.
Right, and it's still talked about, and she's still well known.
Foundations in her name. There's
and I mean, look, I couldn't even remember the king's name, but I remembered her name, or the prince's name, and I couldn't even. You know what I mean? I couldn't even remember half of the royal family, but I could remember her, and I could remember a lot of details about her because of who she was. So no matter what, at the end of the day,
I might argue that that's because of what happened to her, but
yes, that's probably it too. But I do think that she's probably more involved.
I mean, prior to any of these conversations, maybe going back to, when you were a teenager, did you always think that this was orchestrated, or did you think that she had it? Because in the beginning,
I thought it was like, I really thought that something. Not when I was not talking about like when I was a kid, because I really don't.
Not when you're 9.
I'm talking about when I started really knowing more about it, probably when I was in high school.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about, though. If you when it released,
I thought she was killed.
Well, when it released, when it happened, when the announcements were made, the assumption is, well, it happened the way they told us it happened. Why would you ever question it? It wasn't until there was reason to question it, and then you took one step into looking into it to uncover quickly all these reasons why it doesn't look like it was just an accident. So I think at face value, like if the news report comes on tomorrow and says this happened, we typically immediately just believe it as, well, I heard it on the internet, it must be true. But then the second we look into it, everything changes. Well, this is coming from a biased source. This is coming from an illegitimate source. This is coming from whatever. And all of a sudden you can pick apart any story that we get. I mean, it happens all the time in the media. So I do think that maybe very initially when it happened, I didn't know anything about, or I didn't know enough to question it. But it wasn't until then I heard other stories that came out that I was very quickly to think, no, this was not just an accident.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that there was some. I think that too plausible for it not.
Look, there was so much, there's so many reasons for it to happen. I mean, there were so many motivating factors for this to happen. in the eyes of the royal family. And to me, 2 + 2 = 4. You know, it's not it it's just too complicated of a situation for the easiest answer to be the right answer.
I also feel like if this was a brake line cut, or not brake line cut, but a thing or whatever, uh, sloppy. There's too much. There's
But
too many
apparently not
pieces.
sloppy, because if
Who's
it
gonna
were,
go up against them?
I mean, Muhammad Al Fayed, he was the only one that could have done it. He was a billionaire. He had the financial means and the ability to do it. The problem is that what where does it get you? What? But that's the thing. That's what's so weird about, because I don't understand the politics behind a royal family. They've been doing, prior to this, if you go back, like I said, there are documented cases of poisonings and killings and all kinds of things to protect the royal family. Well, why does society continue to allow this to even exist? Like, they don't. I mean, why is the royal family still a thing? They're not. It's not like
Well, she did have a royal funeral though.
she would have had a royal funeral
Then
regardless of the royal
then what was the
family.
problem with her going to a royal hospital?
No, I'm saying she would have had a royal funeral regardless, because she was royalty, not in the way that the royal family's royalty, but in the way of the hearts and minds of the people that knew her, thought of her as royalty. She was, I mean, she was just a good, upstanding, amazing person that did really good things for the human race. Like people were crying in the streets that never, it didn't. I mean, it was just nuts, right? She had
Right.
that kind of impact on so many people that even if the royal
Nice.
family wouldn't have been involved in her funeral, it would have been a royal showing of, I mean, there would have come out in masses as they did.
Yeah, I just think that it's I like no matter which way you put it, every person doubts how that happened. Like her own kids do. Her own kids doubt the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, Charles says it's that way with every death, or incident that happens. The more you learn about it, the more it opens your eyes, and that's so true. I mean, every incident has three sides of the story. It has one side, the
Yeah,
second side, and the truth.
yeah.
And there's just always more to every story almost. And it just seems too outlandish to me that this wasn't orchestrated. That it was just a freak accident that shouldn't have happened.
So if she would have married him, we're talking like
Dodi Fayed.
yes, but we're talking like politics here now. If she would have married him and her kid would have been related to him now, and
Stepdad.
let's say she had a kid also,
Mm-hmm.
would they not be able to take the throne if or take the crown, not the throne? I was thinking of House of Dragon or
Well,
Game of
same
Thrones.
same thing. Would
Uh,
would
Would
they
they
still
be
be in
able
royal
because they
lineage
have
to
ties to
line to
another
the?
royalty?
Yeah, no, they wouldn't have had any ties to another royalty. That the other family wasn't royalty. The other family, if Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed would have gotten married, because she wasn't Princess Diana anymore at that point, she was just Diana.
No,
And if she would have married Dodi Fayed, then this royal family thing would have been a situation created by the public, by the media. Um, if she and Dodi got married, had children, the media would have followed them as though they were royalty, creating this image of a new royal family, which threatened the actual royal family. So it's not saying that she was marrying Dodi and Dodi's in some royal family. It's just saying that it would have created the media attention
I
was
thought he was
all
like
on
part of some.
Diana.
I thought he was like part of that.
That No, he was just the son of a billionaire billionaire hotel owner, entrepreneur, whatever.
I thought he had. I thought he had. Okay, fine.
No. So if she marries him and they have kids and the media was already following them, you think the media, I mean, look at the media, what we go through. We have a woman who has 38 kids and we follow them like we know, every freaking move they make. So think about Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed get married, have babies. The media attention is just all 100% on them. And they create this public image of a new royal family that detracts from the royal family, and they're not going to have that. Not to mention he's Muslim and they are completely anti-Muslim. So they didn't want any part of that connection leading back to. Now, does it change the lineage of her and Charles's kids to the throne? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It could be similar to the backlash Meghan Markle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, anybody coming from the outside can be a threat to what they have. 100%. And I think even more so because of the Muslim aspect of it. I mean, that is a big piece of it.
Yeah.
So, plot line for a Denzel Washington movie, maybe so, but an absolute no-brainer in my mind that there's more to the story than what there's just more to that story.
It is what it is. I mean,
I don't think we're going to figure it out on this podcast, but I do think
it will go down in history as one of the biggest sus things ever.
The most sus, yes, things ever. So yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a great place to leave it. We gave you have any final parting thoughts on that? I do want to ask you about one more thing, so don't go anywhere, everybody. But do you have any final thoughts on the Princess Diana death was orchestrated topic?
I don't know. Earlier today, I kind of like, it's very possible it's just, and they needed somebody to blame because everybody needs somebody to blame. And it was either going to be the paparazzi or it's going to be someone that has passed. And if they could blame it on them, why not?
It is entirely plausible that this was a horrific, tragic accident.
But then again,
it is weird also that plausible that
it is weird that I continuously keep forgetting there's a fourth person in that car.
Yeah, I don't know about it.
I just feel like
disagree on that. I am not going to put that family in the middle of this conspiracy in any way.
Oh no! I just meant I just always forgot about it because that person has never publicly spoken on the matter. And I mean, you know what? I hope they just leave a letter to give us their point of view on what happened. And I mean, I actually kind of hope that he doesn't remember anything. But I do think this whole situation, I think maybe Princess Diana might have been, and I think she might have had her actual to worry.
I mean, she kind of called her shot, unfortunately. It's a horrible shot to call, but she kind of did. I mean, she said, they want me dead, and it's going to involve a car, and all those things they're going to kill me in a car accident. She said that in a letter before that happened.
And it's weird because it's like, she's gone. She's could have actually said you couldn't have a divorce. You could say, nope, you can't have one. Why did they let you get out of the royal family? They controlled everything
because he wanted to be with Camilla, sweetie. He was having an affair with Camilla. He wanted to be married to Camilla. They had to let her out. I mean, I know he had multiple affairs, but he wanted to be with Camilla. He got his way in the end. Ryan says, I'm on the fence now because of this live. Even learned some things. I appreciate that. I would encourage you to do your own research and not necessarily believe everything we said because we don't know anything more than the average person. That's why it's yet another average podcast. But
I mean,
we do enjoy
I
it.
learned a lot more when I kind of dug a little bit deeper today.
Well, I didn't know much about this whole thing until we decided to do this topic, and then I dug in deep, and that's what I love about these things is I get so much more now I get so much more out of these topics because that I didn't know before. So all right, my final thoughts are that yeah, it's going to be hard to convince me otherwise. I do think that there's more to the story. I would hate to think
we'll never find out.
I don't think it's a tragic accident, but I do think that there's more that happened, and I don't think we'll ever know. However, at the end of the day, she's gone, but never forgotten, and
and her legacy still lives on
R.I.P.
today, and all the foundations that she has established is still continuing today.
May your legacy live on forever, Princess Diana.
And I
thank
did
you for
own
all
that
you've
Beanie
given
Baby at
us.
one point in my life.
What?
You're
talking over my recap. I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Just kidding you. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. What were you saying? Because I was done.
I literally own that baby.
Huh?
I literally.
Oh yeah, she has her own Beanie Baby that's worth billions of dollars now.
Yeah, I wish I would have kept it.
Well, we all had it at one time.
But does that make me bad?
Make
me sound bad that I would have sold it?
Gave it. I think we donated ours to a Goodwill somewhere. I mean, I don't know. Who would have known?
I mean, it had to be in one of the protectors, though. The little tag.
Yeah.
If it wasn't in the protector, then it was a no-go.
Schaefer makes a great point too, and I've always wondered this too. But you just don't know the dynamic. She did not love Charles, and so she could have been cold and miserable for him. But yeah, the second question is, you have Diana, and yet you cheat with Camilla. Okay. Yeah. And a U.S. perspective is from friends is interesting to me. I appreciate that as well. Now,
so Camilla always had a crush on. They were friends.
Yes.
But they made it out to seem like Diana was jealous because of her, and that's why they got.
Well, they certainly didn't get along. There's plenty of history and stuff on that. But
absolutely.
We don't need to get into that.
She didn't go to her funeral.
But we don't need to get into that because that's not part of the conspiracy theory.
All right.
What I do want to say is thank you all on that part, but I do want to also bring up something else because we're live and why not? We went out yesterday, had a good time. We went to Ameristar Casino, gambled a little bit, played some slot machines. Mitchie, tell us about the day. Did you have fun?
Did I? Lots of fun.
What are your favorite? What was your favorite part?
From 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
The whole time we were there. Yeah. Well, so my favorite part
I got Olive Garden.
My favorite part was we walk in. She's never been here before, and it's a big casino. It's one of these kind of Vegas-style casinos, but in the Midwest, and it's beautiful, and it's got all this stuff
really
to
cool.
look at.
It's like a town inside of a building.
It is like a town inside of a building, and so you go in, and I said, Mitch, you've never been here before. I always like to just take one walk through, kind of take it all in, see what it has to offer, look around, get all that stuff. And Mitchie walks in, walks about 7 feet, sees a machine that she loves because we played it on the boat.
I like the train and the escalators.
And sits down, and she's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to play this machine.
I like the train and the escalators.
So we didn't walk around to take it all in. We went straight to a machine, and Mitchie sat down with $100, and within like 30 seconds, turned it into like 350. And then we just continued to gamble on that money throughout that day. And it was a very fun, lucrative day. My favorite game was the Big Hot Flamin' Pots, although it also, after doing very well for me, turned around and kicked me straight in the teeth and took a lot of my money.
That one actually did really well for me.
Yeah, you did well on that one. I did well initially, but then I went back to it to play it again and got my tail handed to me.
I think
you took $27 to a slot machine. You were down to $27. Yep. You took that to a slot machine when I went back and started losing on that one. You took 27, went down right around the corner from me and sat down on a machine and hit for like $450 on 27. That was huge. We were up, down, up, down, up, down the whole day.
Yeah. But what did I do? I never had to use another 100 after that. Never had to use any more money.
No, you started with one $100 bill, put it in a machine, played with it the entire time.
Yep.
We got up higher than we walked away from, and then we lost a little, and then we got back up, and then we lost a little, and we finally walked away while we were up, but not quite at the peak of where we were up. So, what else did I like? Buffalo's always fun. You played Stinkin' Rich. That's where it all started. I played the Coin Trio, my favorite game. Played some of the Dragon Ball games, not Dragon Ball Z, just the Dragon Link, I think is what it's called. Played a lot of fun games that we see online all the time, but we don't have access to, or we watch the videos on YouTube and things, and so it was fun to see them. Oh, I played Mo Mummy. Mo Mummy was a lot of fun. There's a little mummy guy that threw the green diamonds. Yeah, what's the lottery numbers this week, Mitchie? Fact.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I do better with $1 scratch though. She
does very well on those kind of things, and I'm waiting for her to pick the winning Powerball ticket. But
how do you know?
In the meantime, she does very well on the slots. We've done pretty well at the casino the last couple of times. We've been doing it for date night, and we've had a good time. But we probably ought to leave it alone because eventually it will humble us and take it all back. So we're just going to keep doing some fun things like that. If we can, it will be fun to incorporate some of that stuff into videos. But sometimes you just want to have a night where you just go out and have fun and not worry about YouTube. So that's what we did this time. But if I can get permission from the casino in the town that we live in, then we might do some. I just feel like
we're going to make a lot of old videos. People pissed off.
Why?
I don't like it.
We're not putting anybody's face on camera.
I understand that.
It literally sits in front of you and films the... Anyway, we see it on YouTube all the time. If we can do it, I'm going to.
Do you want to know what my trick is?
What's your trick?
I literally get on the machine that's got off of, because every time I do that, I literally hit the...
You do. You always wait for somebody to get up and walk away, and then you go swoop in on their machine. Plus, you have all these weird, like, it has to be 2 cents. And it has to, instead of 1 cent. And
I can't sit in the same. I can't
numbers,
sit in the.
You can't sit in the. Yeah.
I can't sit at the same one.
Yeah, and you think that certain things matter versus it's just a random number generator, and it's.
Or if you pick the machine and I sit down, I do well. Or yeah, that's usually it too. That's another one. But I also thought I was going to Buffalo, and I wasn't going to Buffalo. It ended up being
some bowl game,
Toro or whatever.
Toro.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I didn't even know what it was for. I was like, this isn't it. Then I just kept playing. Then I won.
$27 into $450. Yeah, absolutely. I hit a
and I don't even pay attention to what I'm winning.
I was playing some game I don't even really know, and hit a $577 bonus on a $2.74 bet. It's like, where can you do that? I could have lost it all too, but superstitions do make it fun. I say I don't have superstitions. I say that it's all a random number generator, and that why nothing else matters. But at the same time, I specifically have to enter the casino through a specific door. And usually there's 2 sets of doors, so you got to go through the same one on both sides. So we went in. Mitchie somehow went to the door that I never told her this. She's just learning about this for the first time. She went to the door, or maybe I opened the door. She went in, and then she merged to the right and went through a different door. And I opened and went through the same door, because I believe that what door I go in and what door I leave through matter. So I have my own superstitions that are absolutely absurd, that really mean nothing. But it's just like wearing your lucky underwear or your lucky hat. You just gotta have them. I have machines that I know. I have a machine that I call an ATM, because I know every time I sit down there, I'm going to win. And until it proves me wrong.
And which one's my ATM?
Stinkin' Rich.
That's because it paid out right when we walked in there.
Right, but Stinkin' Rich kicks me in the teeth every single time. I could lose hundreds in that thing and never win. So I don't play that game, but you do, and you do it very well. I play it; it's awful. Same with Coin Trio. Although you did well on Coin Trio last time too. I've done it. But that's my go-to. I can sit down. It's like an ATM. I just put $100 in and take 300 out. It's insane. I love that game. But probably ought to take a break from it, but probably not, because we'll probably go film a video or do something crazy here in the near future. I am going to talk to the guys, because I do know the floor manager at the St. Joe Casino. And so I'm just going to ask him. If he says we can't do it, then we can't do it. But if he says we can, then I'll take a little tripod and we'll
I've
film
never
some
seen
gambling.
anybody in there.
Neither have I, but that doesn't mean you can't. You know, just because nobody does it.
I just feel like that's going to be the start of bad luck.
It might be. Anyway, great things are coming. We hope to have a lot more fun with various just random content, what we're doing, and we'll see. We'll be sporadic in our videos, but when they come up, they'll come up. We got Batman NFTs coming soon. I don't know if I'll do something with those as far as video goes, but I don't know if it'll be pack openings or not. The last pack opening, Scooby-Doo, went very well.
I thought you never want.
I don't want to open NFTs ever again. I don't ever. But they make.
But then how come I always see that?
Because they make good content. We've got 400 views on that
but
video.
But you always buy them.
No, I don't.
I think you didn't get in one because they were out.
But yeah, there's been a number of series that I have not bought any NFTs from.
No, I meant pop. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I'm not shipping any of the pops. Anyway, yeah, we got all kinds of different things we're going to be playing with, whether it's painting or challenge videos or.
We better row this boat along because you were talking and I'm getting hungry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, we're done. I just wanted to ask you about your day yesterday. So
no, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed going, and it was really cool to see that train inside of there.
Yeah, like, it's a really neat casino.
I really wanted to see more of it, but like you were.
No, you did not want to see more of it. You wanted to stay and gamble longer. Don't you pull that nonsense.
I was still way up and above, and I wasn't even.
I tried to get you to go to the restaurant in there so that we could eat and then come back in and gamble.
It's going to take too long.
And you were like, no. So I just said, fine, we're leaving. We're out.
Do you really want me to tell you why I didn't want to go eat there?
Sure. But regardless, whatever the answer is, the point was I was going to go back in after we ate. I was just in the casino starving to death. Like, look at me. I can't miss a meal. Clearly. So I got really hungry and wanted to go eat, and I was going to come back in, but you were like, nope. So we had to leave to go get food, which means we're not coming back. All right,
we didn't need to stay there any longer.
All right, I know, but you did want to because you wanted to go back in and play the Crazy Chicken. Anyway,
I did. They were cute.
Anyway, we appreciate each and every one of you for being here, and thank you for spending your evening with us. And I hope you all have had a wonderful weekend, Sunday night as well.
Jeremy didn't give you my 10-minute special tonight. He's going to post a special little video for you that he has not posted yet.
Yeah, so it'll go up on Friday.
You will post it.
Oh, it'll go up on Friday. Again, the title of the video is Freaky Friday. So it has to go up on a Friday.
I'm supposed to enter it in it for my 10-minute.
It'll go up on Friday. I'll schedule it now when we get done here. Are you not hungry anymore?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. And thanks for yapping with us. Mitch is going to crinkle that in the microphone really loud. This is not an ASMR video. So
it is now. It's whatever we want it to be type of YouTube channel.
Do you want your 10 minutes now of rant?
Let's go.
Okay. Then thank you all so much for being here and yapping with us on LSAPC Presents Yet Another Average Podcast. Appreciate each and every one of you, and we will